Hello, and welcome to Sleep Stories World. I'd like to invite you to step into a world of relaxation and tranquility with this bedtime story, designed to help you unwind and de-stress. By engaging in this story, you can embark on a journey that nurtures and soothes your mind, promoting overall well-being through sound, restful sleep. Before we begin, let's prepare your space for rest. Ensure you're somewhere comfortably cool, dark, and quiet. If you need to adjust anything, your curtains, your temperature, your pillows, please do so now. When you're ready, lie down and let yourself settle into your bed. Feel the weight of your body being supported. You may want to cover yourself with a light blanket as your body relaxes. Now, gently close your eyes. There's nothing you need to see anymore tonight. Your only task now is to be here, allowing yourself to receive the gift of rest. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Breathe in deeply, feeling your chest expand. Breathe out, feeling your body sink deeper into your bed. In and out. With each breath, you're signaling to your body that it's safe to rest. Now, imagine being surrounded by a warm, vibrant light. This light is gentle and comforting, carrying with it a deep sense of peace and safety. As you breathe in, let this warm light fill your chest. As you breathe out, imagine it spreading gently through your upper body. Breathe in, and let the light expand through your shoulders, your arms, your back. Breathe out, and feel it filling your stomach, your neck, your head, every space within you glowing softly. If a thought comes by, acknowledge it like watching a leaf float by on a gentle stream, and then let it drift away. There will be time for those thoughts later. Now is for rest. On your next breath in, let the warm light travel downward. Feel it reach your hips, your thighs, your knees. Breathe out, and sense it flowing down to your ankles, to your toes. Every part of you now is surrounded by this gentle, warm glow. You are completely enveloped in comfort and peace. Focus on your breath and the warm light surrounding you. If your mind wanders, simply guide it back, gently, to your breath, to the light. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are exactly where you need to be. As we move into tonight's story, allow yourself to let go even more. Let the words wash over you like a gentle tide. You don't need to follow every detail. Simply receive the story as a gift, a soft companion as you journey toward sleep. And now, let us begin. In the Arctic winter, the air itself becomes a force, invisible but undeniable. The wind is not merely a breeze or a gust. It is a presence that shapes the landscape, moves the snow, and tests every living thing that calls this frozen world home. The winds of the Arctic come from many directions, but some winds are more powerful, more dramatic, than others. These are the katabatic winds. The word katabatic comes from the ancient Greek word katabasis, which means descent or going down. And that is exactly what these winds do. They descend. Imagine vast ice sheets and high plateaus, places where the ice rises thousands of meters above sea level. At night, when there is no sun to warm the surface, and in the Arctic winter, when the sun doesn't rise at all for months, something remarkable happens. The ice radiates away whatever heat it has absorbed, cooling rapidly. The air in contact with this frigid surface also cools, becoming denser, heavier, than the air around it. Cold air is heavier than warm air. This is a simple principle, but its effects in the Arctic are profound. The cold, dense air begins to sink under its own weight. And because the ice sheets are elevated, because they sit high above the surrounding terrain, gravity takes hold. The heavy, cold air begins to flow downhill, moving down the slopes like an invisible river of cold. This is the katabatic wind, air flowing downslope simply because it has become too heavy to stay at the top. In Greenland, these winds have a special name. They are called piteraq, a word from the Greenlandic language. The piteraq are most intense when a low-pressure weather system approaches the coast. The pressure difference between the high plateau and the lower coastal areas becomes extreme, and the cold air accelerates as it rushes down the slopes. Piteraq winds are extraordinarily powerful. They typically reach speeds of 100 to 150 knots. That's about 115 to 173 miles per hour. Wind speeds equivalent to a major hurricane. And yet, this is wind caused not by a storm, but simply by cold air flowing downhill. In 1970, the strongest piteraq ever recorded struck the small village of Tasselak on Greenland's east coast. Wind gusts exceeded 160 knots, more than 180 miles per hour. That's stronger than a Category 5 Atlantic hurricane. The damage was so severe, so catastrophic, that officials seriously considered closing the town permanently, abandoning it to the winds. Instead, the people of Tasselak created an official warning system specifically for piteraq events. Now, when conditions suggest a piteraq is approaching, an alarm sounds throughout the village, giving people time to seek shelter and secure anything that might be blown away. These katabatic winds are strongest during winter, when there is no incoming solar radiation to interrupt the cooling process. In the depths of the polar night, the ice sheets remain cold continuously, and a large pool of dense, frigid air builds up over the interior. This pool of cold air feeds the katabatic flow, sending wave after wave of icy wind cascading down toward the coast. The winds are channeled by the landscape, funneled through valleys and mountain passes where they can reach truly extraordinary speeds. In these restricted areas, where the wind is compressed and accelerated, velocities can blow well over hurricane force, reaching around 160 knots or even higher. Antarctica experiences similar winds. There, the katabatic winds blow outward from the vast interior ice sheet toward the coast. The ice sheet of East Antarctica is so large, so elevated, that it creates its own weather patterns. Cold air pools on top of the ice, then flows downward in all directions, guided by the slope of the terrain beneath. The flow is strongest where the topography channels it, where valleys and coastal escarpments focus the wind into narrow corridors. At stations on the Antarctic coast, katabatic winds are observed throughout much of the year, but they are most pronounced during winter, when the cold is most intense and the temperature difference between the plateau and the coast is greatest. One particular stretch of the Antarctic coast, in Adélie Land, is famous, or perhaps infamous, for its relentless winds. The topography there channels the katabatic flow onto a small section of coastline, creating some of the strongest and most persistent winds on Earth. It was here that Douglas Mawson's expedition, in 1912 to 1913, recorded the Earth's highest annual mean wind speed, 19.4 meters per second, or about 43 miles per hour, as an average over an entire year. During that winter, the expedition experienced gale-force winds on all but one day out of 203 consecutive winter days. Imagine 202 days of gale-force winds, day after day after day of wind that never stops, never relents. But katabatic winds are not the only winds that shape the Arctic winter. There are also blizzards, winter storms that combine falling snow, high winds, and brutal cold into conditions that can be deadly. For a storm to be classified as a blizzard, specific conditions must be met. The winds must be strong, at least 56 km per hour, or about 35 miles per hour, with frequent gusts that may be even stronger. These winds must cause blowing or drifting snow that reduces visibility to 400 meters or less, about a quarter of a mile. And these conditions must persist for at least 3 to 4 hours. A severe blizzard is even more intense. Winds exceed 72 km per hour, 4 to 5 miles per hour, visibility drops to near zero, and temperatures plunge to -12 degrees Celsius or lower, about 10 degrees Fahrenheit or colder. During a blizzard, the world becomes white. Sky and ground merge into a single, featureless expanse. This is called a whiteout, a condition where there is no visible horizon, no depth perception, no way to tell up from down or near from far. The horizon simply disappears. Everything, absolutely everything, becomes the same shade of white. In a true whiteout, a person can become disoriented just steps from their door. They might be only 3 meters, 10 feet, from safety, and yet be unable to find their way back. The complete loss of visual reference is profoundly disorienting, almost hypnotic in its completeness. Interestingly, a blizzard doesn't necessarily require heavy snowfall. What defines a blizzard is the wind and the visibility, not the amount of snow falling from the sky. In fact, one of the most dangerous types of blizzard is called a ground blizzard, a storm where no new snow is falling at all. A ground blizzard occurs when strong winds pick up snow that's already on the ground, loose, powdery snow, and blow it into the air. If there are several inches of fresh, light snow covering the landscape, winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour can quickly lift this snow and create complete whiteout conditions, even under a clear sky. Ground blizzards are particularly dangerous because they can develop rapidly when an Arctic cold front moves through. The temperature drops suddenly, sometimes 20 or 30 degrees in less than an hour. The wind increases just as quickly, reaching gale force in minutes. And if there's fresh snow on the ground, visibility can drop from miles to nearly zero in moments. The cold temperatures that follow Arctic fronts make these ground blizzards especially hazardous. With wind chills dropping to -40, -50, even -60 degrees Fahrenheit, anyone caught outside is at immediate risk of frostbite and hypothermia. Exposed skin can freeze in less than 10 minutes under such conditions. One of the most infamous ground blizzards in history was the Children's Blizzard of 1888, which struck the Great Plains of the United States. It was particularly deadly because it was preceded by unseasonably warm weather. The morning dawned mild, almost spring-like, and many people went about their day without proper winter clothing. Children walked to school in light jackets. But in the afternoon, an Arctic front swept south. The temperature plummeted. Winds increased to gale force. And because there was fresh snow on the ground from earlier storms, that snow was lifted into the air, creating instant whiteout conditions. Many people, including children trying to walk home from school, became lost and disoriented just yards from safety. An estimated 235 people died in that storm, many of them children, frozen to death within sight of shelter they could not see. The Arctic wind does not discriminate. It affects all living things equally. Animals that have adapted to the cold still seek shelter from the wind. Polar bears dig into snowdrifts, letting the snow pile over them. Arctic foxes burrow into the snow, creating temporary dens. Even the hardy muskox, with their thick coats, huddle together in groups, presenting their backs to the wind while the young shelter in the center of the group. Wind also shapes the snow itself. It carves the surface into patterns, creating drifts and sastrugi, sharp, wave-like ridges of hard snow that form parallel to the prevailing wind direction. These features can be just a few centimeters high, or they can rise to a meter or more, frozen waves in an ocean of snow. In areas where katabatic winds are particularly strong and persistent, the wind can scour the snow away entirely, leaving bare ice or even exposed ground. In Antarctica, there are entire valleys, the McMurdo Dry Valleys, where the katabatic winds are so strong that snow cannot accumulate at all. The wind removes every flake, creating landscapes that look more like Mars than Earth, barren, rocky terrain in the middle of the ice sheet. But for all their power, for all their fury, the Arctic winds are simply another element of this frozen world. They are neither good nor evil, they simply are. They move the air, redistribute the snow, shape the ice. They are part of the system, part of the balance that defines the Arctic. As we imagine these winds sweeping across the ice, invisible rivers of cold air flowing down from the heights, let us recognize their power but also their purpose. They are part of what makes the Arctic what it is. Without the wind, the landscape would be different. The snow would sit undisturbed. The ice would form in different patterns. The very climate would change. The wind, like the cold, like the darkness, is simply a condition of existence in this place. And the creatures that live here have learned to work with it, to shelter from it when necessary, to accept it when shelter is not possible. Let the image of the Arctic wind settle into your thoughts, not as something to fear, but as a force of nature, powerful, yes, but also natural, simply another element of this remarkable frozen world. Breathe slowly. Let your breath be calm and steady. Unlike the fierce winds of the Arctic, let your breathing be peaceful, gentle, quiet.